The stars had never looked so threatening. Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his warship, staring at the screen that showed something impossible. Numbers kept climbing on the display. 9,000 ships. 9,500. 9,800. The computer finally stopped counting at 9,900 alien vessels. "This can't be real," Lieutenant Danny Price said from his station. His hands were shaking as he ran the scan again. "Sir, the readings are confirmed. 9,900 hostile ships approaching from deep space." Jake felt his stomach drop. The entire Earth Defense Fleet had only 847 ships. He had commanded naval vessels for 20 years, fought pirates and hostile aliens, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. The alien fleet approaching Earth was more than 10 times larger than anything humanity could field. "Get me Admiral Cooper," Jake ordered. His voice stayed calm even though his heart was racing. A good commander never showed fear to his crew. The Admiral's face appeared on the screen within seconds. Frank Cooper looked like he had aged 10 years in the past hour. "Morrison, I know what you're going to say. Yes, the numbers are real. Yes, we're completely outnumbered. And yes, we're going to fight anyway." "What do we know about them?" Jake asked. "Not much. They're calling themselves the KRNth Dominion. They sent us one message: submit or perish. Dr. Lisa Hayes is analyzing their technology now. It doesn't look good." Dr. Lisa Hayes was the smartest person Jake had ever met. If she said something didn't look good, it was probably terrible. "What's the plan, sir?" "We're scrambling every ship we have. I want you to take your battle group to Jupiter. Buy us time to evacuate the colonies. Every minute counts." Jake nodded. "Understood. What about Earth?" Admiral Cooper's face hardened. "We protect it with everything we have. Cooper out." The screen went dark. Jake turned to his crew. They were all looking at him, waiting for orders. Some were young, barely out of the academy. Others were veterans who had served with him for years. All of them knew what those numbers meant. "Listen up," Jake said. "I won't lie to you. The odds are bad. Really bad. But we've got something they don't. We're fighting for our home. We're fighting for our families. We're fighting for every human being in this solar system. So let's show these KRNth what happens when you threaten Earth." The crew responded with determination. They moved to their stations with purpose. Jake felt a surge of pride. These were good people. Brave people. Captain Sophie Grant's voice came through the communication system. She commanded the patrol vessel Horizon. "Morrison, my ship is ready. Where do you need us?" "Form up with the main fleet, Sophie. We're heading to Jupiter." "Copy that. See you out there." Jake watched as hundreds of ships began moving into formation. Destroyers, cruisers, carriers, and frigates all prepared for battle. The Earth Defense Fleet was humanity's pride. But looking at those 9,900 enemy ships on the scanner, Jake knew pride wouldn't be enough. Dr. Hayes contacted him directly. "Commander Morrison, I've analyzed the alien technology. Their shields are generations ahead of ours. Their weapons, too. A single KRNth dreadnought has more firepower than 10 of our largest carriers." "Are you saying we can't hurt them?" "I'm saying it will be very difficult. But I'm working on something. Give me time." Time was the one thing they didn't have. The KRNth fleet was already passing Neptune. At their current speed, they would reach Jupiter in 18 hours. Jake spent those hours preparing. He studied every detail of the enemy ships. He ran simulations. He talked to his tactical officers. Lieutenant Danny Price worked harder than anyone, searching for any weakness in the KRNth formations. "Sir, I think I found something," Danny said. "Their larger ships create interference patterns. If we hit them from multiple angles simultaneously, we might overload their shields for a few seconds." "A few seconds? It's better than nothing, sir." Jake smiled grimly. "You're right. Send that data to all fleet commanders." "Good work, Danny." The 18 hours passed too quickly. Soon, Jake could see the KRNth fleet with his own eyes. They were massive, dark ships that seemed to swallow light. They moved in perfect formation, like a swarm of predators closing in on prey. Admiral Cooper's voice came through on the fleet-wide channel. "All ships, this is Cooper. Today we face an enemy that thinks we're weak. They think we'll surrender. They think we'll run. Let's prove them wrong. For Earth." 847 human voices responded as one. "For Earth." The KRNth fleet opened fire first. Brilliant beams of energy crossed the space between the two fleets. The first human ship to die was a destroyer. It simply vanished in a flash of light. Then another. And another. "All ships, return fire," Jake commanded. "Execute Price's pattern. Hit them from every angle." Human missiles and energy weapons struck the alien shields. Most attacks bounced off harmlessly. But when multiple ships concentrated their fire exactly as Danny had calculated, something beautiful happened. For just 3 seconds, a KRNth dreadnought's shields flickered. Human weapons punched through, tearing into the alien hull. The massive ship exploded. "We got one!" Danny shouted. "Focus fire. Keep using that pattern," Jake ordered. The battle had begun. Humanity was fighting for its very survival. The space around Jupiter turned into hell. Explosions lit up the darkness as human and alien ships exchanged devastating fire. Commander Jake Morrison gripped his command chair as his ship shook from nearby blasts. On his screen, he watched the battle unfold with growing horror. The KRNth were methodical and ruthless. Their formations never broke. When one ship was destroyed, another moved to fill its position instantly. They fought like machines, cold and efficient. Humanity fought with desperation and courage, but it wasn't enough. "We've lost the carrier Washington," Lieutenant Danny Price reported. His voice cracked. "The destroyers Lincoln and Jefferson are gone too. Sir, we've lost 200 ships in the first hour." 200 ships. Thousands of lives. Jake forced himself to focus. Grief would come later, if there was a later. "What's our kill count?" 12 confirmed KRNth vessels destroyed, sir. 12 out of 9,900. The math was brutal and simple. At this rate, humanity would be wiped out long before making a real dent in the enemy fleet. Captain Sophie Grant's voice burst through the communication line. "Morrison, I'm making a run at their carrier. The big one on the right flank." Jake pulled up her position. Sophie's ship, the Horizon, was damaged and venting atmosphere. She was heading straight toward a KRNth carrier that was 3 times her size. "Sophie, negative. Pull back." "Can't do that, Jake. My engines are hit. Life support is failing. I've got maybe 10 minutes. Might as well make them count." Jake wanted to order her to retreat, to find another way, but he knew she was right. Sophie had always been practical, even when it hurt. "Make it count, Captain." "Always do." Sophie Grant, signing off. "It's been an honor." Jake watched as the Horizon accelerated toward the KRNth carrier. The alien ship fired everything it had, but Sophie dodged and weaved with incredible skill. She got close enough to ram. At the last second, she detonated her reactor core. The explosion was massive, a miniature sun that consumed both ships. The bridge fell silent. Sophie had been Jake's friend for 15 years. They had graduated from the academy together. Now she was gone, turned to atoms in the cold of space. "Sir, the rest of their carrier group is breaking formation," Danny said quietly. "Captain Grant's sacrifice worked. They're vulnerable." Jake pushed his grief down deep. "All ships, concentrate fire on those carriers. Don't let Sophie's death be for nothing." The human fleet responded. Dozens of ships focused their weapons on the confused KRNth carrier group. 3 more enemy carriers exploded. It was a small victory, but victories were rare today. Dr. Lisa Hayes contacted Jake from the orbital defense platform. "Commander, I've been analyzing the battle data. Lieutenant Price was right about the shield frequencies. I think I can enhance the effect. But I need you to keep one of their ships intact long enough for a detailed scan." "You want me to capture a KRNth ship during this battle?" "Just disable one. I need 5 minutes of clean scanning data." Jake looked at the tactical display. It seemed impossible. But so did everything else today. We'll try. Danny, find me a target. Something isolated. Danny worked his console frantically. There, sir. That cruiser on the edge of their formation. It's separated from the main group. All ships, form on me. We're taking that cruiser. Jake led 20 ships in a coordinated strike. They hit the KRNth cruiser from every direction at once, exactly as Danny's calculations predicted. The alien shields flickered and failed. Instead of destroying the ship, Jake ordered precision strikes on its engines and weapons. The KRNth cruiser drifted, helpless. Dr. Hayes began her scans immediately. Got it. I'm reading everything. Their shield generators, power cores, weapon systems. This is perfect. But the KRNth weren't going to let humanity study their technology. 3 dreadnoughts turned toward the disabled cruiser. They fired, destroying their own ship before it could reveal any more secrets. Did you get enough data? Jake asked. Yes. I'm processing it now. Give me an hour. An hour felt like an eternity. The battle raged on. Human ships fell like leaves in a storm. The destroyers Nevada and Montana. The cruiser Atlantic. The carrier Enterprise. Names that had meant pride and strength, now just entries on a casualty list. Commander Rick Bennett led a desperate defense around Earth's moon. His ships were older models, but he used them with skill. Morrison, we're getting overwhelmed here. They're pushing toward Earth. Hold your position, Rick. Reinforcements are coming. What reinforcements? We're all that's left. Rick was right. The Earth Defense Fleet had started with 847 ships. Now only 340 remained operational. The KRNth had lost maybe 70 ships total. The mathematics of extinction were clear. Dr. Hayes finally called back. I've got it. I've created a weapon modification that exploits their shield frequency. It should increase our damage output by 300%. Should. Will. It will work, Jake. I'm transmitting the modification specs to all ships now. Engineers across the fleet worked frantically to install the modifications. It took 30 precious minutes. 30 minutes during which 40 more human ships died. But when the modifications were complete, everything changed. The human fleet opened fire with their enhanced weapons. KRNth shields collapsed under the assault. Enemy ships that had seemed invincible began to explode. In 20 minutes, humanity destroyed 45 KRNth vessels. Jake felt hope for the first time since the battle started. We can actually hurt them now. All ships, press the attack. But the KRNth were not stupid. They analyzed the new human weapons and began adapting. Their shields modified, changing frequencies. Within 2 hours, the advantage was gone. The KRNth shields were strong again. They adapted, Dr. Hayes said, defeated. I can't counter-adapt fast enough. They're learning faster than I can develop new weapons. The hope died as quickly as it had appeared. Jake looked at his tactical display. Only 160 human ships left. The KRNth were advancing toward Earth, unstoppable. Admiral Cooper's face appeared on every screen in the fleet. He looked tired, old, broken. All ships, this is Cooper. I'm ordering a retreat. Fall back to Earth for final defense. Sir, if we retreat, they'll destroy the colonies, Jake protested. The colonies are already gone, Morrison. Mars fell 20 minutes ago. They used some kind of planet-killer weapon. 3 million people, just gone. All we can do now is protect Earth itself. The fleet retreated. Behind them, Jupiter's moons burned. Earth hung in space like a blue jewel, beautiful and fragile. Commander Jake Morrison stared at his homeworld, knowing he was watching it die. The KRNth fleet had arrived, 9,800 ships strong. They had lost only 100 vessels fighting humanity's entire defense force. Colonel Amy Walsh coordinated the ground defenses from a bunker deep beneath Colorado. Her voice came through the communication system, calm despite the chaos. All major cities are evacuating to underground shelters. We're moving as many people as we can. But Jake, there are 11 billion people on Earth. We can't save them all. How many can you save? Maybe 2 billion if we're lucky. If we had more time. Her voice broke slightly. We don't have more time, do we? Jake looked at his tactical display. The KRNth fleet was positioning itself around Earth like a noose tightening. No, we don't. The remaining human fleet, 160 ships, formed a defensive sphere around Earth. It was pathetic compared to the enemy force, but they would fight anyway. That's what humans did. They fought even when winning was impossible. Engineer Pete Johnson had been working without sleep for 3 days straight. He contacted Jake with barely contained excitement. "Commander, I've modified our weapons using Dr. Hayes's frequency data. It won't work as well as before since they adapted, but I've added something new. A resonance pulse that should disrupt their power cores." Should. Will. Probably. Maybe. Look, sir, I'm an engineer, not a fortune teller. But it's the best chance we've got. Jake actually smiled. Pete's honesty was refreshing. Install it on every ship that can handle the modification. How long? Already done, sir. I sent the specs out an hour ago. Most ships have finished installation. Good work, Pete. The KRNth began their assault on Earth's moon. Commander Rick Bennett led the Lunar Defense Forces. He had 30 ships, all that remained of the moon's garrison. They're coming in heavy, Morrison. Looks like they want to use the moon as a staging area. We can't let them have it, Rick. That's our high ground. Understood. We'll hold as long as we can. Rick's 30 ships fought like demons. They used the moon's gravity, its craters, every advantage they could find. Pete's new weapons worked better than expected. The resonance pulse disrupted KRNth shields long enough for conventional weapons to do real damage. Rick's forces destroyed 8 enemy ships before the KRNth adjusted their tactics. But 8 ships out of nearly 10,000 meant nothing. The KRNth overwhelmed the lunar defenses through sheer numbers. Rick's voice came through one last time. "Tell my kids I love them, Morrison. Tell them their dad died fighting for their future." "You can tell them yourself, Rick. Retreat to Earth." No retreat. No surrender. Rick Bennett, signing off. Rick's flagship rammed a KRNth dreadnought at full speed. Both ships disappeared in a massive explosion. The lunar defense was over. Humanity had lost the moon. Dr. Lisa Hayes worked frantically in the orbital defense platform. She had a theory, a desperate idea that might give them a chance. "Jake, the KRNth power cores are incredibly efficient but unstable. If we hit them with a massive energy pulse, they might cascade. Like dominoes." "What kind of energy pulse?" "Something big. Really big. I'm thinking we use the orbital platforms themselves. Turn them into giant bombs." Jake felt sick. "Lisa, there are still 5 million people working on those platforms. Civilians. Scientists. Engineers." "I know." Her voice was quiet. "I'm one of them. But if we don't do this, everyone on Earth dies. This way, we save billions." It was an impossible choice. 5 million lives to potentially save billions. Jake wanted to refuse, to find another way. But he was a military commander. He understood sacrifice. "Do it. But evacuate everyone you can first." "There's no time for evacuation, Jake. The KRNth are beginning their bombardment of Earth. It's now or never." The KRNth had indeed begun firing on Earth. Their weapons struck major cities with devastating precision. New York vanished in a fireball. London, Tokyo, Mumbai, all gone in seconds. Billions of lives ended in moments. Colonel Amy Walsh's voice was barely audible over the sounds of explosions. "The shelters are breached in sectors 7 through 12. We're losing thousands every minute. Jake, you have to stop them." Dr. Hayes didn't wait for further confirmation. She activated the orbital platform's self-destruct sequence. 20 massive platforms positioned around Earth began overloading their fusion reactors. 30 seconds to detonation. "All ships get clear." The human fleet pulled back. The KRNth, sensing something wrong, tried to retreat as well. But they were too close, too committed to their assault on Earth. The platforms exploded. It wasn't just one explosion but a carefully calculated series of detonations. Dr. Hayes had spent her final moments programming the perfect sequence. The energy pulse rippled through the KRNth fleet like a wave of destruction. KRNth power cores began failing, exactly as Lisa had predicted. One ship exploded, then another, then 10, then 50. The cascade effect tore through 300 enemy vessels. It was the single most devastating blow humanity had struck against the KRNth. But it wasn't enough. The KRNth still had 9,500 ships. And Dr. Lisa Hayes was gone, along with 5 million others who had been on the platforms. Admiral Cooper's voice carried a weight of terrible finality. All ships, this is Cooper. We've inflicted damage, but we can't win this fight. I'm implementing Protocol Omega. Jake's blood ran cold. Protocol Omega was the extinction protocol. The absolute last resort. Sir, you can't mean. 17 ships will be selected for escape. They'll carry as many civilians as possible and run. The rest of us will buy them time to escape. Commander Morrison, you're leading the escape fleet. No. I won't run while Earth burns. That's an order, Morrison. You're one of our best commanders. Humanity needs you alive. The 17 escape ships will carry our history, our culture, our hopes for revenge. They'll carry the survivors who will rebuild humanity and one day make the KRNth pay for what they've done today. Jake wanted to argue, to refuse, to die fighting alongside his fellow humans. But he understood. Someone had to survive. Someone had to remember. Someone had to carry forward the torch of humanity. Understood, sir. Which ships? Admiral Cooper transmitted a list. 17 ships, chosen for their speed and long-range capability. Jake's ship was one of them. So were 16 others, including some science vessels and transports that could carry large numbers of civilians. You have 4 hours to load as many people as possible, Cooper said. Then you run, and you don't look back. That's how you honor those of us who stay behind. The escape ships moved into Earth's orbit, loading civilians as fast as possible. They could only take 40,000 people total. 40,000 out of billions. The selection was random, a lottery of life and death. Pete Johnson contacted Jake. Sir, I'm staying behind. But I've got one more weapon for you. I've modified your escape ships with experimental faster-than-light drives. They're untested, but they'll get you far away from here. Pete, come with us. We need engineers. Those people you're saving need me to buy them time more than they need me on the ship. Besides, someone's got to make sure these KRNth remember that humanity doesn't die easy. The 4 hours passed too quickly. Jake's ship and the 16 others were loaded with refugees. Families torn apart by random selection. Children crying for parents who hadn't made it aboard. The sounds of grief and terror filled the corridors. Admiral Cooper gave the final order. Escape fleet, you are clear to depart. The rest of US will hold them here. Goodbye, and good luck. 143 human ships formed a wall between the escape fleet and the KRNth armada. They were battered, damaged, running on emergency power. But they stood their ground. Jake's ship and the 16 others activated their experimental drives. As they began to jump away, Jake watched the final battle begin. The 143 ships charged the KRNth fleet in a desperate, suicidal attack. They rammed enemy vessels. They detonated their reactors. They fought with a fury born of knowing their world was ending. Pete Johnson's final weapon activated. The remaining human ships exploded simultaneously, creating a massive energy wave that destroyed hundreds more KRNth vessels. Through the chaos, Jake saw the KRNth turn their full attention to Earth. Their weapons fired in unison. The planet's atmosphere ignited. The oceans boiled. The continents cracked and burned. Earth died. 11 billion people died. 830 ships died. Humanity's birthplace, the cradle of civilization, turned into a lifeless, glowing rock. The 17 escape ships jumped to faster-than-light speed. Behind them, everything they had ever known ceased to exist. The 17 ships tumbled through faster-than-light space like leaves in a hurricane. The experimental drives that engineer Pete Johnson had installed worked, but barely. Commander Jake Morrison held onto his command chair as the ship shook violently. Alarms screamed from every console. Hull integrity at 60%, Lieutenant Danny Price reported. The FTL drive is tearing us apart, sir. If we don't drop out of warp soon, we'll break up. How long until we're far enough from KRNth space? Another 10 minutes at this speed. But sir, I don't think the ship will last that long. Jake made a decision. Cut the drive. Drop us back to normal space. Signal the other ships to do the same. The ship lurched as it fell out of faster-than-light travel. The sudden deceleration threw people against walls and floors. Alarms continued wailing. Through the viewport, Jake could see the other 16 ships emerging from warp. Some were in worse shape than his own vessel. 2 ships were venting atmosphere badly. "Where are we?" Jake asked. Danny checked his instruments. "Unknown space, sir. We're 300 light-years from Earth. The navigation computer doesn't recognize any of these stars. 300 light-years from home. From a home that no longer existed." Jake felt the weight of that reality crushing down on him. Earth was gone. Everyone he had ever known was gone. His parents, his sister, his friends. All dead. "Sir, I'm getting emergency signals from the other ships," Danny said. "The cargo vessel Phoenix is losing life support. The science ship Newton has engine failure. They're requesting immediate assistance." Jake pushed his grief aside. He was still a commander. These 40,000 people needed him. "Launch all repair drones. Get damage control teams ready. We need to stabilize the fleet." The next 72 hours were chaos. Engineers worked around the clock to patch damaged ships. Medical teams treated the injured. Jake barely slept, moving from crisis to crisis. 3 people died from injuries sustained during the emergency FTL jump. 3 more deaths to add to the billions already lost. On the 4th day, Jake called a meeting of all ship commanders. 16 faces appeared on his screen, all looking as exhausted and traumatized as he felt. These were the leaders of what remained of humanity. Captain Helen Ross commanded the science vessel Newton. She was a calm woman in her 50s, a career researcher who had never expected to end up fleeing for her life. "Commander Morrison, what's the plan? We can't just drift in empty space forever." "We need to regroup," Jake said. "Find somewhere safe to repair our ships and figure out our next move." "Danny, did we receive the rendezvous coordinates before Earth fell?" "Yes, sir. Admiral Cooper transmitted them in his final message. There's a designated meeting point 3 sectors away. If any other human ships survived, they'll head there." Lieutenant Chris Palmer, a young officer who had lost his entire family when New York burned, spoke up angrily. "Meeting point? We should be planning an attack. The KRNth murdered 11 billion people. We can't just run away." "We're not running away," Jake said firmly. "We're surviving. There's a difference. Chris, I understand how you feel. I lost everyone too. We all did. But revenge requires us to be alive and capable of fighting. Right now, we're neither." Chris looked like he wanted to argue more but stayed silent. Jake continued. "We make for the rendezvous point. With luck, we'll find other survivors. Then we can start planning our next move." The 17 ships limped toward the coordinates Admiral Cooper had provided. The journey took 3 months. The experimental FTL drives only worked in short bursts without tearing the ships apart. They had to make dozens of stops to repair damage and let the drives cool down. During those long months, Jake learned about the people he had saved. There were families with young children. Elderly couples who had been married for 50 years. Scientists, teachers, engineers, artists. 40,000 stories of lives interrupted, futures stolen. He spent time walking through the refugee sections of his ship. He listened to their fears and hopes. He tried to give them comfort, though he had little to offer. What could he say to a mother whose children had died on Earth? What words could ease that pain? Dr. Nathan Gray, a geneticist who had been working on advanced human modification, approached Jake one day. "Commander, I've been thinking about our long-term survival. 40,000 people is not a viable population for rebuilding humanity. We'll need genetic diversity, enhanced resistance to disease, possibly even physical augmentation to survive in harsh environments. You're talking about changing what it means to be human, Jake said. I'm talking about ensuring humanity has a future at all. The KRNth destroyed our world, Commander. They'll hunt down any survivors they find. We need every advantage we can get. Jake didn't make any promises, but he didn't dismiss the idea either. Maybe Dr. Gray was right. Maybe humanity needed to evolve to survive. The 17 ships finally reached the rendezvous point. It was an empty region of space, far from any major star systems. Jake's heart sank when he saw it was deserted. Scan for any signals. Anything that might indicate other survivors. Danny worked his console for several minutes. Then his face lit up. Sir, I'm detecting a faint distress beacon. It's human. There are more survivors. Over the next week, other ships arrived at the rendezvous point. Small groups, battered and broken, but alive. A mining colony ship that had been in deep space during the attack. 3 warships that had been on patrol at the edge of the solar system. A passenger liner that had escaped Mars minutes before the KRNth destroyed it. In total, 37 ships gathered at the rendezvous point. It wasn't much, but it was more than Jake had dared hope for. The total survivor count was now 73,000 humans. Not even a rounding error compared to the billions who had died, but it was something. Jake was elected as the overall leader of the refugee fleet. He hadn't wanted the position, but someone had to make decisions. Someone had to give these people direction and purpose. Captain Helen Ross made a discovery that changed everything. Commander, I've been analyzing the debris field we passed 3 days ago. It wasn't natural. It was a space station, ancient but clearly artificial. I think there's more out here. Remnants of other civilizations. Other victims of the KRNth? That's my theory. I'd like to take a small team and investigate. We might find technology we can use. Information about our enemy. Jake approved the mission. Helen took the Newton and 2 escort ships to explore the debris field. What she found was both horrifying and enlightening. The space station had belonged to a species called the Variant. They had been a peaceful, advanced civilization. The KRNth had exterminated them 8,000 years ago. Helen found databanks full of information about the KRNth's history. They've done this before, Helen reported. Not just once. 40 times. 40 different species, all destroyed. The KRNth have been wiping out civilizations for 10,000 years. They see it as their mission to cleanse the galaxy of what they consider inferior life. Jake felt sick. Humanity wasn't special. They were just the latest victims in a genocide that had been going on for millennia. Did the Variant find any way to fight back? They tried. Their data shows they fought for 20 years before the KRNth overwhelmed them. But Jake, they left detailed information about KRNth technology, tactics, even the location of some of their worlds. This is intelligence we can use. For the first time since Earth's fall, Jake felt something other than grief and despair. He felt purpose. The KRNth had made a mistake. They had let some humans escape. They had underestimated humanity's will to survive. Jake gathered all the survivors for an announcement. 73,000 faces looked at him through screens and in crowded assembly halls. The KRNth think they've won, Jake said. They think they've erased humanity from existence. They're wrong. We're still here. We're battered and broken, but we're alive. And we're going to make sure they regret the day they attacked Earth. Chris Palmer stood up. How? We have 37 ships. They have thousands. We start small, Jake said. We find other survivor groups. We recover technology from the civilizations the KRNth destroyed. We learn everything we can about our enemy. We build our strength slowly and carefully. It might take years. It might take decades. But one day, we'll be ready. One day, we'll strike back. And when we do, the KRNth will learn what it means to awaken a sleeping giant. The survivors began to cheer. It started small but grew into a roar. These people needed hope. They needed a reason to keep living. Jake had given them both. That night, alone in his quarters, Jake looked at a photo he had saved on his personal device. It showed Earth from orbit, blue and beautiful. He made a promise to everyone who had died. "We will remember you. We will honor you. And we will avenge you." The refugee fleet began its long journey into the unknown, carrying the last hope of humanity into the darkness. 6 months had passed since the 17 ships escaped Earth's destruction. Commander Jake Morrison stood in front of a large holographic display showing the refugee fleet's new home. They had found an abandoned space station orbiting a dead world. The station was massive, built by a civilization that the KRNth had destroyed thousands of years ago. "It's perfect," Captain Helen Ross said. She had been exploring the station for weeks. The previous inhabitants called themselves the Sarkith. They were incredibly advanced. "This station has manufacturing facilities, living quarters for 500,000 people, and best of all, it's hidden. There's some kind of cloaking field that makes it nearly invisible to scanners." "How did you find it then?" Jake asked. "Pure luck. We picked up a faint energy signature while searching for resources. If we had been a few thousand kilometers off course, we would have missed it completely." The refugee fleet moved into the station immediately. 73,000 humans spread throughout the massive structure. Engineers worked to restore power and life support to sections that had been dark for millennia. It felt strange living in a tomb, walking through corridors where another species had lived and loved and ultimately died. Dr. Nathan Gray set up a genetics laboratory in one of the station's science wings. He approached Jake with a proposal that made the commander uncomfortable. "We need to enhance ourselves if we're going to fight the KRNth. I'm talking about genetic modifications that will make us stronger, faster, more resistant to injury." "You want to turn people into something other than human," Jake said. "I want to give humanity the tools to survive. The modifications would be voluntary." "But, Commander, think about it. The KRNth are physically superior to us in every way. They're stronger, their reflexes are faster, they can survive in environments that would kill us. If we're going to beat them, we need to level the playing field." Jake thought about it for a long time. Finally, he made a decision. "You can proceed with research. But no actual modifications until we know it's safe. And it has to be completely voluntary. Anyone who doesn't want the modifications won't face any pressure or discrimination." "Understood, sir." Lieutenant Chris Palmer had become obsessed with finding the KRNth homeworld. He spent every waking hour analyzing data recovered from the Sarkith station. "They have to have a central command somewhere," Chris said. "No empire that large can exist without a beating heart." "Even if we find it, what then?" Jake asked. "We can't attack it. We don't have the strength." "Not yet. But someday we will." Jake admired Chris's determination but worried about his mental state. The young lieutenant had lost his wife and 2 children when New York burned. He hadn't really grieved, just channeled all his pain into thoughts of revenge. It wasn't healthy, but Jake understood. They had all lost everything. Captain Helen Ross made another discovery that changed their situation dramatically. "Commander, you need to see this. I found something in the Sarkith databanks. Information about other human colonies." Jake felt his heart race. "What do you mean, other colonies?" Before Earth fell, there were long-range colony missions. Generation ships sent out to distant star systems. The Sarkith detected some of them centuries ago and recorded their trajectories. According to this data, there should be at least 12 human colonies scattered across this region of space. Colonies the KRNth don't know about. How many people are we talking about? If the colonies succeeded, probably 200,000 humans total. Maybe more. "Jake, we're not alone. There are other survivors out there." Jake immediately organized search missions. The refugee fleet's fastest ships went looking for the lost colonies. It took 3 months, but they found the first one. A colony on a harsh desert world, 15,000 humans who had left Earth 50 years ago on a generation ship. They had no idea Earth had been destroyed. When Jake told them what had happened, the colony's leader, a woman named Patricia Stone, wept openly. "We left to find a new home, not to become the last remnants of humanity." "How many survived the attack?" "Including your colony, about 90,000 that we know of. We're searching for more." Patricia made a decision quickly. We're coming with you. Our colony has resources, ships, weapons we've been manufacturing. If there's going to be a fight, we want to be part of it. Over the next year, Jake's people found 8 more human colonies. Each one added to their numbers and strength. The total survivor count climbed to 263,000. They had 92 ships now, including some powerful warships the colonies had built for defense against local threats. The refugee fleet was becoming something more. It was becoming a nation in exile, a government without a country. They held elections and established councils. They built schools for the children and memorials for the dead. They were creating a new society from the ashes of the old. Lieutenant Danny Price, working with Dr. Helen Ross, made a breakthrough in understanding KRNth technology. Sir, remember how Dr. Hayes discovered that weakness in their power cores? I've been studying the data she collected. I think I've found something even better. Show me. Danny brought up a complex diagram. The KRNth power cores are incredibly efficient, but they have a fundamental design flaw. They need to vent excess radiation every few hours. During that venting cycle, they're vulnerable. Not for long, maybe 30 seconds, but it's a window we can exploit. Can we detect when they're venting? Yes. I've designed a scanner that can pick up the specific radiation signature. If we know when they're vulnerable, we can time our attacks perfectly. Jake felt excitement building. This could work. This could actually work. Danny, you might have just given us a way to fight back. Dr. Nathan Gray finished his genetic modification research. He presented his findings to Jake and the council. I've developed a safe enhancement package. It increases muscle density by 40%, improves reflexes by 30%, enhances healing speed, and provides resistance to radiation and toxins. I've tested it extensively. There are no negative side effects. Have you tested it on a human? Jake asked. Yes. On myself. Nathan rolled up his sleeve, showing a series of injection marks. I've been enhanced for 3 months now. I feel stronger, faster. My reaction times have improved dramatically. It works, Commander. Jake looked at the council members. This is a big decision. We're talking about fundamentally changing what humans are. Patricia Stone spoke up. The KRNth already changed us. They took our world, our people, our future. If these modifications give us a better chance to survive and fight back, I say we use them. But it should be a choice, not a requirement. The council voted to make the enhancements available to any adult who wanted them. About 60% of the population chose to be enhanced. Jake was one of them. He figured if he was going to ask people to fight, he should be willing to make the same sacrifices. The enhancement process took 3 weeks. Jake felt different afterward. Stronger, yes, but also more aware. His senses were sharper. He could process information faster. It was strange but also empowering. Chris Palmer found what he had been searching for. He burst into Jake's office with wild eyes. I found it! I found the KRNth homeworld. Jake looked at the star chart Chris displayed. Are you certain? Absolutely. It's called KRNth Prime. It's heavily defended, of course. Thousands of ships, orbital platforms, the works. But Jake, this is their heart. If we ever get strong enough to strike there, we could cripple them. That's a big if, Chris. We have 92 ships. They have thousands. I know. But now we have a target. A goal. Something to work toward. Jake studied the chart. Chris was right. Knowing where the enemy's homeworld was gave them focus. Good work, Lieutenant. But this stays classified for now. I don't want people getting ideas about attacking when we're not ready. When will we be ready? I don't know. Years, maybe decades. But we'll get there. That night, Jake called a meeting of all ship commanders and colony leaders. 263,000 people listened as he spoke. A year ago, we fled Earth as broken refugees. Today, we're something more. We've found other survivors. We've recovered ancient technology. We've made ourselves stronger. The KRNth think they destroyed humanity. They're wrong. Jake paused, looking at the faces around him. Enhanced humans and unenhanced, young and old, all united by loss and hope. We're building something here. A new humanity. Stronger, smarter, more determined. We're learning from the species the KRNth destroyed. We're preparing for the day when we can fight back. How long until we're ready? Someone called out. However long it takes. 5 years, 10 years, 50 years. It doesn't matter. We have time. We're patient. And when we're finally ready, when we've built our strength and gathered our forces, we're going to return to KRNth space. We're going to show them what happens when you threaten humanity. Jake's voice grew harder. The KRNth destroyed our world, but they made a critical mistake. They let some of us escape. They gave us time to adapt, to grow, to learn. They think they're the apex predators of this galaxy. They're about to learn they're wrong. The crowd erupted in cheers. Jake let them have their moment of hope and defiance. Later, alone in his quarters, he allowed himself to feel the weight of responsibility. 263,000 people were counting on him to lead them to victory against an enemy that had destroyed 40 civilizations. He pulled up the photo of Earth one more time. The blue marble that no longer existed. "We're still here," he whispered to the image. "And we're not done fighting. Not by a long shot." Outside the station, in the darkness of space, human ships patrolled silently. They were few in number but growing. Building strength one day at a time. Learning. Preparing. Waiting for the moment when they could strike back. The KRNth had awakened humanity's fury. Now they would learn what that meant. The galaxy had never seen what humans could do when pushed to the edge of extinction. But it would. Soon enough it would. The seeds of vengeance had been planted. Now they would grow.